What's up, everybody? Welcome to Crash Course Literature, the Barstow edition, and I'm your host, Nikita Alvagard-Strubel. Today we're going to discuss the importance of names in the novel Sula by the author Toni Morrison. When parents think about naming their babies, they think about names that will follow them for the rest of their life. So they must have put tons of consideration into their names, even though it might not come out unique one despite their good intentions, such as John Adams or Sam Smith. Or it might just simply get frequently misspelled by people like Wenham. Similarly to the book Sula, Toni Morrison also puts a lot of thought into the names of her characters. These names, likewise, will also be used to portray the character and allow them to come alive. How? That's a great question. So why don't we roll the intro? We're about to dive right into the analysis of our main character, Sula. First of all, Sula means the sun in Hebrew. With that being said, what image appears in your mind when you think of the sun? Let's just take a moment to appreciate this beautiful picture. Take a deep breath, and we're about to do some mind yeti. Just kidding. But you see, indeed, the solar system is made up of multiple different planets that orbit around the sun. It is the heat as well as the light source. Similarly to our protagonist is a blinding light in the community. However, she is weighed down by all the social norms and blatant expectations of how she should behave. But she doesn't let that stop her from being who she is. Just like the sun, Sula will never stop shining, even if there are some clouds in the sky. She is a bright, colorful, passionate, proud, open, and bold about who she is. Harsh sometimes, because when you look directly into the sun, you will be blinded from the aggressive brightness. Just like Sula, you get too close and you get burned. Sassy and classy. Ironically, however, Sula's last name Peace, Sun Peace. A peaceful sun? Well, in this situation, the two ideas don't really mix together since Sula brings anything but peace to the people in her town. Now that we know what her name symbolizes, let's then consider this. What kind of upbringing molded her into who she is? So conflicted, complicated, and fascinating. Well, she wasn't brought up like most others in the bottoms. Her mother, Eva, was also not like most. Eva's name is very close to Eve, and Eve was considered the temptress in the Bible, which reflects Eva in the novel. As she was viewed as a temptress to the men of her town, a sin in the Bible. Eva had married a man named Boy Boy. Well, Boy Boy, I guess, also plays on the name, insinuating that he is more of a boy than a man, as he has left his family. Sula used to see her mom go around with men, single or married. A whore? Maybe. But more importantly, I guess, is that she was taught to embrace her sexuality in a way. Sula was taught through her mother's experience that sex was pleasant and frequent, but otherwise unremarkable. Being brought up like this, of course, the grown-up Sula wouldn't care about the social normalities. She does just about everything against them, and she is always the one to be fearless no matter the cost, even though that means she will be shunned from her community and viewed as an outcast, and be rejected and humiliated by the others of her life. She was never truly given the chance to cherish anything until Ajax came around. The name Ajax itself is another illusion. It means eagle in Greek. So what does eagle remind you of? Oh yeah, freedom. Ajax, ironically, is the only one Sula wants to hold on to, but eventually flies away. Sula wanted to control Ajax as his person, his mind, and his freedom. Sula began to discover what a possession was. Not love, perhaps, but possession, or at least the desire for it. She was astonished by the so new and alien feeling. In the end, I guess, freedom wins. Camera 2, did you just ask how can you talk about Sula without talking about Nell? How did you know that was what I was going to talk about next? Alright. As Sula's other half, as well as her best friend, Nell's last name is ironically Wright, which is indeed sounds just like right. As an opposite to Sula, Nell is constantly weighing out the pros and cons of the right thing to do based on the norms of her society. She does what is expected of her and is also quieter. So you can guess what the town reaction would be like. Yes, the town loves her. She was everything Sula was not. Sula and Nell were like two pieces of a puzzle that fit perfectly together. For example, they were both raised with mothers that didn't care too much for them individually, and Nell's mother was always focused on her appearance in the eyes of others, while Sula's mom was usually with a new man. They together were the daughters of distant mothers and incomprehensible fathers. Even if her last name entails what her expectations would be like, Nell didn't get along with her mother, since her mother would always attempt to force proper clothing and manners on her. As the book described, any enthusiasm that little Nell showed were calmed by the mother until she drove her daughter's imagination underground. Helen, Nell's mother, also has a meaning that resides in her name. Helen means light in Greek. She wore bright clothing and tried to stand out and be conventional and be as proper and prim as a woman can get. She wanted people to address her as using the French pronunciation of her name to give her more authenticity to her overall appearance. Showcasing her beauty, she was successful for the most part, getting the approval she wanted. Well, almost everything. However, regarding to how she was treated and reacted, nothing more like a dog on the train when traveling with Nell to the south. The pretty and iconic name all of a sudden became irony. First and only trip away from the Bottoms played a big role in her development. She was brought up to turn herself against the world and avoid sexuality, but as she goes on the new trip, she begins to develop a more independent character. When she returns home, she comes to the decision that she is going to be her own person. The trip, perhaps, or her newfound meanness, gave her the strength to cultivate a friend in spite of her mother. And that is how Nell and Sula had the opportunity to become friends. It is because Nell decides that she is no longer going to see herself as a daughter or a possession of someone else, but as her own person. She said, "I'm me. I'm not their daughter. I'm not Nell. I'm me. Me." Again, this meanness will only increase by growing bond between Nell and Sula as the story progresses. After growing up with Sula, Sula leaves for 10 years before ever returning. In this time, however, Nell is being right. She does whatever is expected of her. She gets married, has children, and falls in love with a man. Everything goes right on point. She does what her society thinks is right, and she gets it right. But when Sula returns, oh my gosh, everything begins to swirl out of control again. Her husband cheats on her with Sula. Nell then loses herself, realizing slowly that her marriage wasn't necessarily right, but just another prototype of the Bottoms. She only fully realized when Sula died and what importance she truly had in her life. Names. What a wonderful creation by humans. It just adds so many layers to the story, and the way it is capable of summing up all the expectations we have is simply magical. Now that we discovered so many meanings that hide behind the names of the characters in Sula, hopefully you have a better comprehension and understanding of the book. This is Crash Course Literature. I'm Nikita, and it's very unlikely that I see you again, but have a terrific Thursday, Barks. Thanks for watching. Peace out.